Okay, so I wanted to start with Kal Ho Na Ho for two reasons. One is that it's very good background music for people trying to find seats. And two, because if anything, the last 2 years have taught us is Kal Ho Na Ho. And I think I want to start by first just being in joyful jubilee and celebration that we are all here in person, being able to talk to one another. Okay. I want to introduce my co-panelist for today, who is an old friend. By that I don't mean she's old. She's
Thanks, Anil.
okay. She, I mean, it is a session on creative intelligence, so you're going to expect a lot of creative things here. Akila Krishnamurthy is the Director for Communications at Kriya University, which is my other home, where I am an associate professor. Oh.
Lovely.
Thank you, Lata ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Phones can ring in the session only on two conditions. One is that it has to be at the same pitch at which I'm playing. If not, we will auction the phone. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Akila is the Director for Communications at Kriya University. You can't hear me? Pankaj, kuch karo yaar. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so Akila is the Director for Communications, but before that, she's been a long-time collaborator and friend. We will talk all about that during the session because it's got pertinence to what we're going to talk about today. Akila is also one of the most renowned cultural curators for the city of Chennai and a large part of South India. She used to be a journalist with India Today. I've also encountered her as the head of the Madras desk for the Times of India and multiple other assignments. She runs a very successful cultural magazine called Alap, and also some of you would have seen Alap, and they also do a lot of events. So Akila has suffered me both as a colleague as well as an artist, as well as a collaborator. So much so that my jokes don't work on her anymore.
Well, Anil, if I may add, I just was reminded today that 20 years ago, I had the privilege of interviewing Anil Srinivasan in his apartment and write a piece for India Today. That was Anil's first magazine piece, right?
Like a large magazine piece. I think you broke the story about the collaboration and all of that. So
yeah, but then, you know...
breaking news.
But through the years, I've had the privilege of documenting his fantastic career, a career where he wears many hats. I think all of you know that by now. And it's truly a privilege for me to be in conversation with him today and also share some insights. I think in many ways, meeting and writing about arts and artists also really actually inspired me to start an arts company. So thank you, Anil, for this.
Thank you, Akila. So for a very long time, we've been looking at multiple intelligences, you could say. Multiple intelligences. Somebody's put hot coffee on this chair to make sure I don't sit. So that's the, okay. Hot seat, okay. So for a long time, we've all been living, breathing, and loving Howard Gardner, okay? Including people who have no idea about education. They come to me and say, Howard Gardner and multiple intelligences. Everything okay? Oh. Pankaj, how could you? Okay. All right. So Howard Gardner came out with multiple intelligences framework, which actually followed a tremendous journey in education, going way back. I mean, even before Maria Montessori and even before you had all these studies in eurythmics, and it went back a long way, and it's a long tradition of cognitive psychologists before Howard Gardner published the idea of multiple intelligences. It is not like we did not know what multiple intelligences were, but somebody classified it and got us to talk about it. However, like most theories, this theory also comes with its limitations, right? So I'm not going to bore you with a theoretical talk on psychology. I know all of you by now know that I'm full of nautanki, so it is going to be entertaining. But suffice to say that the reason that I said creative intelligence is, incidentally, creative intelligence is also a book of the same name that I am writing, which is coming out in February, hopefully, or March, Akila to note, and co-authored with Sri V. Ramasubramaniam in Syracuse University, where we are talking about going beyond the multiple intelligences framework, but looking at what does creativity mean in education, what does creativity stand for in the practice of education, and why should school leaders and school counselors be involved in sculpting creativity for their students. When we say creativity, increasingly, most of us refer to, actually let me ask you this question. So when I say someone is creative, right? What do you think we refer to? What are the adjectives that come to mind when I say someone is creative? Imaginative, thinks out of the box, problem solving, designer. And this is precisely the issue. We mean everything and anything. You understand? So much of literature coming at you, right? Somebody comes in from an American university and says, today's education challenges are all about creativity. Are you creative? Are you? And because of social pressure, we say, yes, of course. But we refer to too many things. Creativity has become sort of the Allu Arjun of the education space. It's everywhere, dancing with Koreans and dancing for Srivalli also, right? It's become that word that everybody is using anywhere, everywhere. An artist has a claim to being creative. A designer has a claim to being creative. A principal definitely has a claim to being creative, because a principal has to be creative from the moment they get up. By the time the principal has gotten into the car and come to school, 25 creative challenges are already over. I know. And then comes the parents. And then the principal becomes the creative Mahalakshmi. However, you go through literature and people say we are trying to prepare students for an uncertain world. And I'm feeling so bad about people standing. Maybe somebody can get in chair. Some people can sit on the floor. If you want to, you know what? If you kick off your shoes and sit on the floor, it can be very comfortable, actually. Yes, please do. Please do. Those who have the capacity to sit down and young and want to yield to people who cannot sit down, please do so. Right? It is a creative intelligence session. You can be as creative as you want. Okay? They should have hired the ballroom. But we have to think out of the box. The perception of space has to be an imaginative thing. All right. So, do you all want to come in front? Or you can use my hot seat? Okay. Okay. So creativity has started standing for everything and anything, and then you're increasingly reading higher education literature that says we have to prepare children to be creative. Creativity is going to be the language of the 21st century world, etc. Right? And as school educators, as school, college, school counselors, we are left wondering, so how do we do that? It just means that we give them more art and craft projects? Does it mean we give them some, internships or some projects for them to do on the side? Kaise kare? How do we do this, right? And what does creativity really mean? Increasingly, the world is looking for, now you look at the national education policy, a much talked about, much unread and yet discussed document. Everybody talks about NEP, yeah? School watchman is talking to me about NEP. Okay. As per NEP 2020, have you actually read it? हाँ, download किया है. Where is it? School office में, पढ़ा नहीं. Okay. NEP is also talking about creativity and collaboration is a very big thing, and as many of you who are part of CBSE schools will know, activity-based learning is just about to become a very integral, important, essential, yet another mandatory thing in our syllabuses. So how do we do this? And many people are finding hacks. They're saying, "Hamare school mein na, we are doing this, this, this. So we have done this. We have ticked the box." Right? Education is not about ticking the box. So how do you say, I've ticked the box, and then say we're thinking out of the box? Hai na? It is like saying Sridevi and Alia Bhatt are both heroines of the same movie. Past and future, right? So this is why we felt, Shrivi and I and many of our collaborators felt, that talking about creative intelligence is probably a very timely concept. What does it mean? How is it encoded, decoded, and how do we apply it into education, right? Why is this important? It is important because every single child that you're working with today, whether you like it or not, is a creative, okay? Pankaj, I'm looking at you. Okay. So every single child you're going to work with, can we just go back to the title slide? I like my face. Yeah. I'll tell you when to change. Baba, why is this changing? I'm not touching anything. No, back. Back. Yes, thank you. Okay. More people. I see 3 people, please note, this is not in my control. Okay. There are people who have come in who want to sit on the floor, please go ahead and do so. Those who are comfortable, you can stretch your legs out. This session is, we're just going to talk as friends. So just feel free to, stretch your legs, sit on the floor if you want. Think to yourself, this is like Delhi T3, when we reach early and there's no place to sit. We don't care, no? We just sleep on the floor itself. It's like that only. Or Bombay Old Terminal, for those of you who remember that. Okay? Everybody okay? Okay, so enough about this background. So what does creative intelligence mean? How does it get encoded into action? So we looked at creative intelligence as something that needs structure, because otherwise everybody says everything, right? It needs sculpting. What does sculpting mean? So it's like yesterday, imagine, aspire. You need to actually start putting this into specific steps that are constitutionalizing what this process can mean in the context of education, right? Then it needs design, right? We have people in this room who are fantastic at curricular design, but they need an input. I can't just say, do a curricular design by tomorrow morning. You need to know what you're designing. Then there needs to be a process on how you take it to the last mile. This is one thing that many of us forget. The NEP document looks beautiful. If you look at the IB, let's say those of you who are in IB schools, if you look at, say, the group 6 description, it is beautiful, right? But it is still, the last mile execution depends on the teacher who's going to take it there, right? We can't keep it at that level, right? Unfortunately, too many of these discussions are happening around the conceptual, metaphysical level, right? We say it needs to be transformative. All these conferences, I'll be very honest with you, okay? We talk all these words. I know many of you looked at your cell phone first thing this morning. I said many of you did, not you, Meghna. Meghna, I'm going to find that very difficult to believe because I saw your LinkedIn update first thing in the morning myself. See? Okay, anyway. So, process, last mile process. So in conferences, we discuss these things at a metaphysical level, but we go back to our schools and the intention is to implement it. But कैसे करें यार? Electricity गई, management के साथ एक झगड़ा हुई. Something else is happening. Kal subah director is coming from local education authority, and day after tomorrow, oof, that 7th standard parent na. So where is the time to execute this? है ना? And if you're a counselor, sir, budget nahi mil raha hai sir, right? So process and then delivery. So it has to be structure, sculpting, design, process, and delivery. So it needs all of these things. And in order to simplify it, we came up with a very elegant framework. The framework said that creativity rests on 4 pillars. The first pillar is, of course, the artistic. So what does artistic creativity mean? Artistic creativity doesn't mean you're playing music or you're singing songs or you're painting something. It means what you get as a derivative benefit out of the arts. What does exposure to the arts give you? It gives you a sense of aesthetic. It gives you a sense of patterns, designs. It gives you a finer way of looking at things. It gives you improvisational skills, which is probably the most important thing for a 21st century learner. How that everything is not going to be given to you on a plate. Things can go wrong. How do you improvise and make it still work? Okay? 30 years ago, we were calling it jugaad, but today we are calling it creative intelligence. The second is cognitive creativity. Cognitive creativity means creativity and the way it is applied to the traditionally linearly taught disciplines. So, how is creativity applicable in the sciences? How is creativity applicable in math? How is creativity applicable in the data sciences? If I'm going to do a project on the Internet of Things, why is creativity still an important language to learn there? Because you will find that whether you're an architect, a bus driver, a conductor, a choreographer, a director, a designer, or running an IC3 conference, you're going to have to be a creative person, right? So how does creativity help me even in the linear, rational, logical, systematic thinking disciplines? The third, probably the most important thing in today's world, every single activity in our lives are done with teams, are done with groups. A principal is only as strong as her teachers and her staff. A counselor is only as strong as the entire school administration that is backing you. And yet, throughout school education, we are talking about first rank. Why are we not rewarding group work? We say, yes, we're doing group projects. No, I don't mean it like that. A child automatically goes to his or her friends in order to execute something. You go into a US university, you go into a UK university, you come into Korea University, your first semester, first courses start you off on groups. Group ke liye 60% weightage. And I have all the CBSE students coming to me in office hours saying, sir, it is not fair, sir. We are working very hard. Our group is not working. We didn't have any control over the groups. You're giving 60% weightage. This has to be complained to the management immediately. And I'm saying, oh my God, you remind me so much of your parents. Because throughout their trajectory of education, we have ingrained I, me, myself. Oh, and you. Right? So collaborative creativity, you go to a firm like IDEO, which does design thinking, right? Or why do you have to go to IDEO? Go to any workplace, right? You are as strong as your team, right? And collaborative creativity, increasingly this idea of cross-disciplinary teams, this is what is driving creative intelligence today. So unless we design pedagogy in such a way that we reward equally, if not more, group work, how do we make children ready for, we keep saying this thing called real world. Okay, real world is right now here, the power of the collective. And the last is design and innovation. Now why do I call it design and innovation? Design and innovation is just a name holder there to refer to how can technology and the world of innovation help us, not the other way around. Today, we are helping the world of technology. How? Facebook. Right? I have friends who, before they even say hello to me, saying, Anil, 1 minute. Okay? We are getting into that zone where technology is using us as data points, right? We are all bits of data floating everywhere. And we are willingly participating in that experiment, right? Nobody asked our permission, but they've got our participation. Instagram, Insta Reels, LinkedIn, Facebook. What is that famous quote from that movie? Earlier, you could just break up with somebody. Now you have to break up with them over 8 pieces of social media. Everywhere you have to go and say, relationship status, complicated, complicated, complicated. Earlier, you could just tell somebody that's all over, right? Social media is the Hindi movie answer to Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna. Because you can't say bye, no? All these bits. And all of us are sharing things, no? Today I made upma in my house. Oh, sister, that's looking yummy. Honestly, who cares? Okay? However, if I want to create some change, if I want Pankaj to pay attention to what I'm saying, he's got such a lovely smile, I forgive him. Okay? I'm a teacher. Now you can understand, no? If Pankaj, Akila, and let us say Salil, who's somewhere in the back of the room, and Bhavani ma'am, all four of them have to, without knowing each other, collaborate and do a project, technology comes to the rescue. Because it's giving you tools, and many, many interesting tools. What we know is not even 1% of the tools that we have at our disposal, right? But we need to learn how to use it, and that also requires designing thinking, right? It requires, when we say design thinking, lots of people come to me and say, what is this your design thinking? Indians know we were designing thinking 5,000 years ago. It's true. And then we forgot about it, okay? Everything needs a process. So creative intelligence brings artistic creativity, cognitive creativity, collaborative creativity, design and innovation. So it has to be equal weightages given to the skills coming out of these things. What does that mean? What does it translate into? Syllabus, pedagogy, how do I take that into the classroom? Now, I will discuss each of these things in turn, but I'm going to now invite Akila, long-time collaborator again, and I'm going to throw her a question and get her to talk to us a little bit about artistic creativity and the curation process, right? And what it can teach you as a life skill.
Thank you so much, Anil, and thank you for setting the context of this. Honestly, I can't ever talk of Alap without talking about my mother. To sort of break things down, my mother would send me for music classes, Anil, like most of us went to music lessons. And I went to music class every day after college, which basically meant that I had the music class straight out of college. And I learned Indian classical music, which meant I had to actually sit on the floor, which also meant that I had to wear salwar kameez every day. And that would be my biggest point of rebellion, because I was really angry that I couldn't wear jeans when I went to college. So all through my college years, I did that. But when I became a journalist and I started meeting some amazing artists like Anil himself, I slowly understood the value of rigor, right? And I understood how my mother had sort of put me through this whole process of training every day. And I understood how Indian classical music itself is so built on the foundation of rigor. And how the more you sort of engaged with that clay, it also allowed you the possibility to mold it in the way that you wanted for it to sort of mold. And that's really what we did with Alap, is that there was a structure, and the structure was something that we had sort of engaged with, but it was also liberating because we had the freedom to think and think out of the box to create whatever we wanted within that very large framework, even though it's sometimes, what seemed limiting to me, that I couldn't actually just wear a pair of jeans, seemed irrelevant, because I realized that within that entire rigor, which actually became a large canvas within which we could, hugely play around. So the first artistic takeaway I'd say is the idea of rigor and the possibility of innovation and freedom of thought and expression within the idea of rigor.
So in our mythological references, we say Lasya and Tandava.
Absolutely,
okay?
Yeah.
Which is that there needs to be structure. So one of the things that in artistic creativity, now I'm talking as an artist, is people say, oh, you artists are so free-spirited. You do whatever you like. It's actually not whatever we like, okay? When there is tremendous, to get to a stage of being able to play at a certain level, to be able to execute at a certain level, the amount of discipline that has gone into that. Riyaz bolte hain, sadhana bolte hain, Artistic practice, like everything else, starts first and foremost with discipline, right? The main reason, ye to aap likh sakte hain, pattar pe. The reason we have arts in our education system starts first and foremost because of discipline, okay? It is not about so that they flower into prosperity. All that is there, okay? But flowering will come only after nourishment, So, because I've spoken to many school leaders and they say, why do we do music in us? I love to see our children bloom. So, aap gardening karo, okay? So the reason that we are doing, right? Yeah, this is my chance for revenge. So the reason that we do, right, arts, and that's a very important point that Akila brings up, is the idea of structure and yet freedom within that structure, right? So I've created, and I'm going to illustrate with your help, Akila, okay, how this works from artistic creativity, which is, it's just 3 notes, and that's the structure. That's the structural rigor, is that I've got 3 notes. But in these 3 notes, anybody from Kerala here? Do the Keralites know this song? Yes. What movie is it from? I say that fast 5 times. Okay. Same 3 notes. Okay? Now if I bring it to the classical. Classical bhi jam sakta hai isme. So it's the same structure, right? Yeah, you go into schools today, you know, someone, I won't name the school, and they heard that I'm a musician coming and said, in our school, sir, we have Indian classical, Western classical, South Indian classical, North Indian classical. So third class hai, keyboard classical. I felt like I was going to Saravana Bhavan and they're telling me idli hai, dosa hai, vada hai.
And along the same lines, I want to, maybe you can demonstrate that too.
Yeah, sure.
is the concept of constant dynamics, sthiti gati, since I work so much with dancers.
Yeah.
The idea of constant, which is sort of consistency in what you do, but also the possibility of innovation and dynamism within that.
It's very similar. So we're just giving you 2 illustrative concepts from the arts, which does not refer to the fact that, the lesson we got is all our children should do music. Nahin. What is the lesson we are taking out of this? How can we apply it to other disciplines as well? That's what we're trying to get to. So the first one is saying establish boundaries, which as educators we must do, okay? But within those boundaries, allow children to do what they want, right? TK yaar, kya hoga? A plus hoga ya B plus hoga, that's all, okay? So the second is sthiti gati, okay? Sthiti, from the Hindi, from the Sanskrit, which means constant. Gati, movement, right? So, sthiti typically is represented by the rhythm or the rhythm pattern of a cycle, okay? So, if I did like a tantra, classical music will teach you these things. Western classical music teaches you all these things. Of course, there are teachers who come to me and say, but we do only opera. So Opera also teaches you that. Okay. Why do they? Music? Why do they read music? So Western music has a long history of being archived, recorded music. So it was always notated. And since the music works on, okay, that gets to a musicological discussion, but since the music works on something known as the equal temperament scale, so they don't have the raga system, right? It's an interval-based system. And since it's scale-based, what happens with that is that you want everybody to be playing the same set of notes, but in certain harmonic patterns. And therefore, having the same script matters. It's also, thank you, Lata ma'am, for bringing this up, because it's also one of the more important learning from the arts, is how do you get a diverse group of creative people to actually work from the same script and yet produce something which is individually brilliant, right? So now, when you start thinking, right, when we use certain words, shabd jo use karte hain, so and so is dynamic, innovative, and all these things, a lot of it is referring to artistic creativity, because that has been our exposure to the idea of creativity, right? So that's part number one. But Akila, I wanted to ask you, other than this learning, one more thing that you've always brought to the table in all our experiences together is curation. Especially when you're bringing people of totally opposing ideologies, opposing egos, right? By the way, artists, vinamrata. It's there when they perform. I'm telling you this as a performer myself. I am humble and I bow down to my gurus and my art, but only me, tumhat. Okay? Next time you host somebody else, no, watch out for this. Anyway, curation. Right, and we use that word very sparingly.
Yeah, curation
Today,
is,
even Baskin Robbins says they curate
yeah,
flavors.
it's a very
okay.
much abused word actually, and everybody is today, sort of a curator, right? But sometimes, Anil, I'd like to just sort of allude to my career in journalism, where I worked as an editor of supplements, where every week I almost put about 15, 16 supplements to bed every week. So one was a supplement essentially on women, one was a neighborhood supplement, another was a city-based supplement. And I realize now that curation, actually my sort of understanding of the whole idea of curation began as a journalist, because you realize that when you're creating content for different publications, you're speaking to different audiences, and even when you're sort of featuring someone, you're also thinking about who is actually reading that, right? And therefore the questions that you ask that person. So curation is really so much about understanding who you're speaking with. It's so much about communication. It's about who you're talking to. It's about empathy. It's about honesty. It's about authenticity. And it's also about collaboration, right? It's finally sort of bringing people together, because you want to kind of especially the premise of Alap was really to see how we can make classical arts accessible to an audience that often found it a bit intimidating. So I remember that in our early days, we curated a concert with Anil at a yoga studio. You remember that concert, Anil? It was pouring that day. It poured cats and dogs. It was a beautiful concert, and we had the dress code was white. And everyone dressed in white, and Anil played some beautiful music. And I thought that that was our early years in terms of curation. And I also want to talk about the importance of aesthetics in curation, because aesthetics is such an intangible. It is really not literally about like I keep an urli here, and therefore my entire experience is beautiful. It begins like in the way create the poster, how you communicate with your audience, how the overall experience is sort of how the social media marketing is done. Aesthetics is really about identity. It's about what is the spirit of that entire experience. And you know that, Anil, like we've worked together on so many projects. But Anil, I want to ask you a question, because that's what I love doing the most. In the context of creative expression, you also teach a course at Kriya. I want you to talk a little bit about the whole idea of structure in the course, and also about the concept of freedom.
Very well done, on cue. Okay. I was just about to bring Kriya University in. So I just want to summarize very quickly before I go to the answer to that, because one of the things that I'm very, very clear is that everybody leaves this room with clear takeaways, right? And not just that it was one lovely discussion. I think there needs to be very clear takeaways. So the 3 points that Akhila mentions in the scope of artistic creativity. So there were the first couple of points that we spoke about, which is having structure and discipline, and then being allowed to innovate. Not that it is pure innovation without the structure. The second thing was the idea of sthiti gati, which is that once you establish the structure, keep grading the pace at which the innovation can happen. We need to keep moving the goalposts of the projects that we set for children, right? It's not that we do the same thing over and over again. So if I've solved problem 1, can I now increase the difficulty? It's adaptive, right? Can I increase the difficulty of project 2? And who determines the difficulty? You, as an educator, are in that privileged position to be able to determine that. So these were the 2 points that we made. The 3 other points that Akhila has brought up. The first one on curation. We use that word very loosely. I've kept beautiful white napkins with my white plates. I've curated. No, right? The point is start to finish. It's 360 degrees, right? Whenever you're organizing something, when you're getting even a school production together, you're organizing a career fair in your school, have you thought through the important lesson from artistic creativity is from start to finish, from the moment that person has walked into the door till the moment the person has walked out of the door and has corresponded to you, consistency in communication style, tone, design, flavor, content, material. Kind of like that very beautiful artistic showcase that Meridian School students did yesterday, right? Is there everything consistent, right? Because until that Lord Krishna stood up on the shoulders of all his friends, right? I know Usha ma'am was sitting right behind me and crossing her fingers, but rigor and consistency from start to finish, if it is not there, that execution will not happen, right? We've all seen when it fails. Also, many of us have had successes, but that is the last point that she made. Okay, I will play some music. I know some people are yawning. It's the post-lunch thing. I agree. Who's that? Okay. Oh, yeah. No, it's really about them. Okay, and the last point, other than curation that you made, Akhila, is follow through. Okay, we make plans. We have to follow through. So these are some of our summarizations from the artistic creativity bit. Now she's thrown me into the Creative Expression Foundation course that I do at Kriya. So I'm going to play something to wake everybody up. Hey, I get to do this, right? Artistic person. Which one is this? Woken up? All right. So why did I play Bulea? Absolutely no relevance to the next point, just to wake you up. Okay. The course that we do at Kriya, and this is not a plug for Kriya University. My Vice Chancellor is not listening, right? Okay. It's not a plug for Kriya University. But one of the premise behind the Creative Expressions course that we do, so in Kriya, we've made this course mandatory for all the first years who join, regardless of which stream they're joining from, regardless of which background they're. Every child goes through a creative expressions course. What is creative expression? Doesn't mean, again, that we give them a paper and crayon and say draw. No. We actually look at theories of creativity. Who worked on this course? I did. So what do? We actually get children to be able to manifest their own sense of creativity, whether it is to be able to postulate a theory, that's also creativity. Create the idea for a business venture, that is also creativity. Create a work of art, that is creativity. Or they are going to create a campus-wide social consciousness drive, that is also creativity. What is creativity? The act of creation, right? But how do I get them there? I have to take them through various steps. So that is where the cognitive creativity comes in. Cognitive creativity is being able to think about creativity in your daily thinking and decision-making skills. That has specific theories associated with it. Okay? And I'm going to give a story, and that story is the starting point of how we start the creative expression story. It's called the story of those who walk away from Omelas, okay? Which is a story written by this writer Ursula Le Guin. Okay? In this story, it talks about this perfect paradise city called Omelas. In that city, everybody is rich, everybody is happy, everybody's cell phone bills are automatically paid, everybody's social media is getting 10,000 likes, everybody's home has electricity which never gets a power cut, everybody's milkman comes on time. You get the picture. Okay, everybody is happy, and yet everybody is also not happy. If you look closely at the eyes of those who are in Omelas, you can see a particular distinctive sadness in their eyes. And you ask anybody, why are you sad? Nobody is able to articulate it, but you can feel if you scratch the surface, they're going to cry. And this, you discover, is because of this one child, one solitary child, which has been imprisoned in a dungeon in one of the houses in Omelas. That child is sitting without any clothes, chained to the wall, not given enough food, not given enough water, beaten on a daily basis. And everybody in Omelas, when they come of age, is taken to see this child. Now, the promise of Omelas is absolute. In order to enjoy lifelong prosperity, you must tolerate this one child getting abused. There is no choice. You want the prosperity, you want this eternal happiness in your life, you must be content, knowing that this child is suffering. And so the title of the book is, title of the chapter is The Ones Who Walk Away, right? The only choice is you can walk away. If you walk away, you're coming back to the normal world where you will struggle like everybody else. And yet the people who are walking away are the ones who are happiest, right? So we start with that premise and saying, look, that child is your inner child. That child is everything that you're suppressing. That child is everything that you're so upset about, but you're so finding it hard-pressed to acknowledge that child inside you. You're scared to express, right? How do I bring that out, right? If this is an organizational behavior workshop, I'll say, let's all be happy, hold hands. Let's first congratulate this beauty of the air we breathe. Right? We've all been to those, where we're all looking towards for lunch. Right? In those things, what they say is, let's actually look at walking away from our comfort zones. That's the term we use, comfort zone. Right? So the process of cognitive creativity is actually getting yourself to walk away from your comfort zone. And so we start with the process of discovering. That's a series of projects that you do. But one of the things that we discovered through that is let's actually get cross-disciplinary teams of students together to work on project-based or activity-based learning. In fact, that's the reason I created CREW. CREW was an initiative that came out of that, right? In school itself, if you're in the 7th or 8th standard, I can start getting you to work with not necessarily your friends, but students that you're unused to, and work on a problem, right? And I just throw you into the deep end of the pool, right? Give you a high stake. I'll say Harvard University is judging this project, right? And you have to do this. Sink or swim, right? Walk away from your comfort zone. How will you do it? You have to then think on your feet. And you know what is the amazing thing I've discovered through CREW? When we did the pilot, we had 27,300 students take part in that pilot. One thing that we discovered, I know it's getting really warm, right? So I'm not going to do this, I promise. Okay, I'll play cool music. Okay, one of the things we discovered is that the students who did well are the ones who don't do academically very well, right? The students who are fantastic at problem solving, thinking on their feet, are the ones who are not coming first in class. Okay, because these kids long ago already learned that the spirit is collaboration, the spirit is jugaad, and the spirit is trying to figure out a solution somehow so that they can keep up with Rohan K, who's anyway coming first in class. Because Rohan K is not the problem. That mummy of Rohan K, na, every day she's doing this. She's coming and telling my mummy, na, you know, one more competition, you know how it is now. He's won so many prizes. The principals are all laughing because Rohan K's mom is the mom who troubles them the most also. Problem solving, right? You all mentioned that word. I'm going to put up, I think I have the slide. I don't think I was that hungover. There you go. This is cognitive creativity and all the constituent elements of it. Impressive, no? So problem solving, okay? Thinking counterintuitively. Looking beyond the obvious, ideation. Many of you mentioned these points. Connecting with others and extracting value from others. Okay? Improvisational ability, which we spoke about in the arts. Empathy, another word that Akila mentioned. Ganapati, Lakshmipati ke baad. Okay? Aesthetics and attention to detail, we spoke about that. Architecting and planning. Okay? Every school correspondent and school owner knows what architecting means in the context of the school. Doesn't mean dealing with the contractors for building KG block. Okay? It is about how that entire school ought to build on its vision. Then entrepreneurial vision. So one of the main promises that the creative expressions course has led to crew and led to everything I do is we are getting children to ideate their own ventures. Right? Even if it is not going to become an actual company, in your 9th standard, start thinking about one way in which you want to solve a problem for your world. Think about it entrepreneurially, because then you're forced to, you're passionate about it, you start owning it, then you'll start working on it. Right? Thinking and decision making with different hats, you mentioned that as well. And leading with sensitivity. And all of these have come from several research studies from 1981 onwards, and are currently present in the Sustainable Development Goals mentioned by UNDP. Okay? So, cognitive creativity is actually looking at a composite of many of these things. Not yet. One sec. Nobody should ever give me a clicker. I just don't know what to do with it. Okay, coming back to this. So, Akila, I'm now going to ask you to sort of tell us a little bit about the collaborative process. If you can take an example from any of the projects that you have executed, talk about a challenge that you faced and how you all resolved it because it was collaborative.
Anil, it just struck me now actually that, you know, when I saw people sitting on the floor, that collaboration is really almost like a puzzle that a child puts together, right? The different parts to, you know, also think about the communications team that works with so many different functions in the university, or, you know, if when we do an event, we work with so many different people, and even if you had everything sorted, the person who's supposed to, you know, sit on the sound music console might make the slightest glitch and everything could just like fall, so collapse literally, right? So the whole idea of the metaphor of the puzzle. And then I'm also thinking about collaboration as a vertical, a foundation sort of thing that you build one step at a time with people, right? So in the context of Alap, I just want to share one story, which is really the, you know, for a long time, like we were the content creators, or we were creating content for other people. But in the last couple of years, we realized that the whole idea of all our stakeholders being our co-creators. So we launched a campaign called A Calendar of Emotions, which is a year-long campaign where we've opted for one emotion every month. So let's say February is for passion, August is for confidence, and you know something else is for leisure and stuff. But we actually had our people, our audience members, curate the content for us, because we realized that collaboration is really sort of a more, one needs to have a more expansive vision of collaboration versus actually thinking that you can actually do everything, because it is literally like a floor puzzle and like a high-rise building that you build. So these are the two important ideas that are sort of coming to my mind today.
Thank you so much, because that leads me straight into how collaborative creativity has been solved for in education using design thinking. Okay, this is where design thinking has started playing a very big role, and why we are putting it into pedagogy. Why that, for example, in Kriya, it's a foundation level course. Why in Crew, we are doing projects on design thinking. Design thinking is all three words that you used, which is looking at stakeholders, multi-stakeholder engagement, simple things. So how many of you here are familiar with the RA milk colony problem in Mumbai, right? Which is basically that they're cutting on all those trees and blah, blah, blah. So now, and India today, the nation wants to know India today, not the magazine India Today. You all, when I say nation wants to know, you all know who I'm talking about, right? So, so ma'am, what is your opinion on the fact that RA milk colony is getting decapitated with the trees? Actually, I'll tell you what you think. Actually, I will tell you what you should be saying. Actually, so, okay?
Or even if she's speaking, she's just there, she's on mute.
I'm sorry, but Akila, how could you even think about saying such a thing at this time? Shame on you that you're thinking about this. Shame on you that you're against the nation and saying these kinds of things.
Unmute me,
No, I'm so sorry.
unmute
Please
me.
block her out. Please block her out. Okay? Increasingly in India today, we are getting into this zone, right? And the world itself is like this. What is that newsreader who actually shouted at the wrong person? And then that person said, why are you shouting at me? I'm not this person. Right? So, the same newsreader. So design thinking is the opposite of that. It's saying you have to listen to. So the RA Milk Colony case, it was very interesting that we made a group of students actually engage with residents, with policymakers, with planners, with the metro rail system. And each person, then the students started forming different opinions. They're saying, oh, it's not what we thought, right? This has this benefit, that has that benefit. This, if you cut down, this will have this effect on somebody else. So then you start realizing it's not a unilateral thing. The world is forcing you to have opinions on things that you don't know anything about. We're all signing signature campaigns without even knowing anything. How could you not sign that signature campaign? Okay, fine, I'll sign it. Right? This is what is happening. And not even two sides. We're saying now there are 14 sides, right? So, like in Kriya, one of the design thinking projects that I gave my children was asking them to, oh, by the way, I should not call them children. Okay. The young adults that I'm working with. We told them to devise a water conservation plant for Kriya. Now that sounds very boring, okay? Ugh. We thought we'll ask you to do some music video. No, we told them to, we made them actually go study, the agricultural practices of the neighboring lands, what is happening to the water table. And the end of it, the children came up with a fantastic idea for water conservation on campus, which has blown the architects away. Because they spend time talking to all stakeholders. Design thinking is that multi-stakeholder process. That is where the collaboration comes in, the cognitive creativity comes in. And they added aesthetics to it. They added that, so creative expression and design thinking work like that, right? How do we give children this experience? We can't give this experience unless we send them into immersive projects. Please send them into more and more immersive projects. Why are we getting scared about it? And teachers should not be part of immersive project, yeah. Okay? That is very bad. Okay? Horrible. I am getting phone call now. Okay. Teacher cannot be part of this process. It has to be student-led, right? And that is where the whole idea of using design thinking, innovative practices, lead into collaborative creativity, lead into the cognitive creativity bit, bring out the best of artistic creativity and lead to a creatively intelligent child. Now, I know we are out of time. We have only 10 minutes for Q&A. I'm just going to summarize very quickly. I know it sounded like the fun just began and it got over. Very short, yeah. This is not, paisa vasool nahi ho raha hai yahan pe. Actually, sir, I don't know. I mean, we thought कि it's something else, and you आप तो कुछ बोल रहे थे, वो lady तो कुछ बोल रही थी. Anyway, it's got over. So, I'm going to sort of summarize this for you. Why we said beyond Howard Gardner is that Howard Gardner provided a fantastic framework for us to look at how multiple intelligences matter. What does that mean? That it's no longer just about getting marks along the rational intelligence continuum, but it is also looking at the fact that children have visual spatial intelligence, they have musical intelligence, they have different ways of looking at body kinesthetic intelligence, and all of this started mattering, and educators started understanding that it is more than we've got to look at holistic. So that also now we have managed to make it into bureaucracy, holistic report card banao. And this holistic report card is one fun process. I saw some teachers sitting and filling it in a staff room. They're like, kaise dalu? Haan, isme ye, okay. Isme kaise dalu?
That is collaboration.
That is, you don't know Tamil, but it is collaboration. Okay. Because everything we love making it into one system. Holistic progress report card banao. Thought अच्छा है. This is why I said process and delivery matters. Thought तो बहुत अच्छा है. Look at the holistic development of the child, but not all teachers are filling it the way the principals here are thinking they're filling it, by the way. Some of them are copying in that also. So Rohan K's marks are going to Rohan S. Okay. So, but going beyond that, we said creative intelligence, increasingly the way it's going to be measured, not even measured, how it needs to matter in life today, is that this is what's happening. So I want to make a confession to all of you. So when I did my PhD, my first seminar in microeconomic theory was handled by a Nobel laureate, okay? And I was university gold medalist, Madras University in economics. So I went into that class like that. I got 99 out of 100. But in that class, that first microeconomic theory class in America, the first midterm, I failed. Total fail, 2 out of 25. Okay, and I cried like a child at 28. I've never failed, okay. I thought that's the end of life. That the good thing about that professor is that he took me aside, he counseled me, and he gave me his handkerchief, and he said, please, this is getting embarrassing, it's just a midterm, yeah, okay. And then he went on to tell me why the way we learn is wrong, right? The creative, I'll tell you where we're going wrong. For example, if you tell an Indian child even today, define a weighted average, the child will do like this, say sigma wi(xi) by sigma wi, okay? That is not a weighted average. That is just the formula, right? What is weighted average, right? And you think about it. If there are two people in the room, Rohan K and Rohan S, one is 13 years old, one is 14 years old, what is the average of the two? 13 and a half. Everybody will say this. Okay? But is there anybody really with 13 and a half years in that room? No. So therefore, it's an imaginary number. Can we start with that, first of all, right? It's not a real number. So what does average mean? Average actually means that it's a probabilistic statement that across a series of trials, it's like the coin toss thing, across a series, now you all know that I did my PhD in maths, no? Across a series of trials, right? Again and again and again and again and again and again, it is a measure of central tendency. Even now, 12th standard CBSE book, it says measures of central tendency, okay? It's a tendency of a distribution to limit itself to a particular value across a series of trials. So it's actually a very beautiful philosophical way of thinking about it. What have we reduced it to? Sigma by wi(xi) divided by sigma wi. How much did the child get in CBSE? 500 on 500, including in English, 100 on 1%. What is the cutoff? 100%. Oh, wonderful. Can they define an average? No. This is the problem, right? So what is the only way to solve for this, right? So going beyond, and this is the world, this is the confrontational world we have of mark sheets and entrance exams and cutoffs. And then we have to follow Howard Gardner, multiple intelligence, ye banda, creative intelligence, wo sab. Kaise kare yaar? How can everything happen? How can I have bel puri, curd rice, as well as jalapeno peppers all at the same time, right? And the idea behind that is that's why it's, yeah, I'm done. So rude, okay? So, the answer is, the only way we resolve this is to create more and more and more creative experiences for our children in school, right? And creative experiences, one way of doing them is giving them projects, one way is giving them immersions, one way is giving them internships, as many opportunities to explore the real world, but let's keep in mind everything we said. First, create the structure, but within that structure, give them the freedom to explore. Your job as counselors, as principals, is not to solve the problem. It is only to create the approach. Here are your parameters. It is like how we tell our children. I don't care, you go play, 8 o'clock, you bloody wash your hands and come to the table. That's all. That is your job. Don't tell them, okay, you play with this person, this person, this person, and especially if you're playing that person, take a selfie, I want to post it. That is not your job. Okay? Number one, right? And if you're looking at the fact that it is problem solving, how do they do problem solving unless they understand artistic, cognitive, collaborative, and design? And beyond that, we have also further defined that in the new way of thinking about creativity, these are the parameters through which we want to design. So these are, I'm also giving you what are the parameters you're setting. This is your solution sheet, cheat sheet, bit paper, this only, okay? You can copy from this. Is that we need to set projects which are problem solving oriented. We need to set of looking beyond the obvious. So therefore collaborate. Therefore collaborate with universities, collaborate with people like me, collaborate with whoever you can to create that beyond the obvious opportunities. Get children to work in groups, encourage improvisation, encourage architecting and planning, and reward entrepreneurship, reward original thought, right? This is really the purpose of everything, and now we'll open it up to Q&A, and Kritika has given us 3 minutes and 40 seconds for that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, through the initiative that I'm running, we've currently curated 24 projects. Harvard, IIT Madras, IIT Bombay se leke, we've gone now into, I think we've gathered some new partnerships here, but we are also working with Syracuse, University of Houston. So for example, I'll give you an example. So we're doing a project with the University of Houston where the person who's running the project used to be the former US ambassador to India. His name is Michael Pelletier. And he's running a project where it's a climate change project. So he's giving a lecture, but after that he set the parameters up for children to work on their own local level climate change solution. And the top one, he's going to get them to present it at the United Nations, right? So this is the kind of stuff that we need to be doing. And more of these are coming your way, right? So yes, lots of, yes, 100%, right? So this is through crew, yeah. Shameless self-promotion, but hey. Yeah, Salil. I agree. Every single human being here in this room today is intelligent. In intelligence, in psychology, no, I don't mean it in a qualitative sense. In psychology, we define intelligence actually in a very physiological way. It is not defined in a judgmental way. Judgment came from report cards, okay? And your alma mater. No, I'm just saying that intelligence actually puts all kids in a front. I agree. But we could have called it the creative quotient, we could have called it the creative anything, but creative intelligence, so given that it's the multiple agents intelligence framework and we're going beyond that, it still comes within the rubric. So it's more from the psychoneurological perspective than looking at it qualitatively. Okay. February, hopefully, March. Definitely not later than April. So otherwise I'll be in trouble. No, it's actually a composite. So it's the different intelligence. So it's a composite of, so different things map onto different things. So artistic creativity, for example, maps on to both the visual spatial as well as the logical as well as the musical, for example. Cognitive creativity will map with two aspects of it. So it's actually a mapped sequence. So I would call it a derivative composite than looking at it as another form altogether. I mean, it was always there. Now we are beginning to redefine it. And this is what the NEP is bringing in terms of art integration. It's bringing it in. So art integration also is a misnomer, right? People think that arts class hai to art integration ho gaya. No, that's not art integration. The one person, actually, I won't name the school again, one South Indian school told me, in our school we teach both integration as well as art. So we have done art integration. Sounded like a bad Rajnikant joke, but so art in so I just want to define that for those who still struggle with the definitions, especially counselors. When you talk to parents, you can say this. Art and education means that school mein arts class hai. Okay? Art in education means There is a certain amount of arts that I'm putting as artistic examples in classroom. Art integration means I am using art but to teach non-artistic things. Okay, which is very different. So I'm using music to teach maths. I'm using visual art to teach line geometry. That is art integration. Right? So there are many differences in these things. Okay. It's getcrew.com. It should be coming up. It's not coming up? I should tell my tech people. Okay. No. GET, get, as in get, KRUU.com.
Anil, I think there's one more question.
Yeah.
You had a question, right?
Yes, sir. And you don't mean intelligence in a qualitative way also.
One thing is that when you normally when a student is coming from a normal background, suddenly we are changing to a design thinking, to how to, when I tried the thinking level, how to get the idea what to create the project.
Got it. So
how to help in that.
Got it. So artificial intelligence specifically is beginning to make, see, there was this wave 3 years ago and everybody got into coding. Okay. And then we had, some of us had bad experiences also. The thing is that with artificial intelligence, there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, a lot of misperception about it. One of the things that, so IIT is working with us on artificial intelligence as curated projects. So one of the things that the IIT Academia have told us is that please let's start with understanding patterns, data, and how to look at data in clumps and start learning to service them. So one of the things we have therefore done is with the AI project, we have given them a problem solving project. We've said we want to create a device for geriatric care, okay, for care of the elderly. So what we told them is all we want you to do as a project is identify what are all the data points you need and then go to those data sources and get the data. That's all, right? So when you start at that level, a child starts thinking that this is something I can do, okay? We straight away start going into solution, they don't know what to do. And we are, unfortunately, because of our education systems, we're very solution oriented, right? Correct answer should come, right? Let's look at correct approach should come. Answer to khud aa jayega, okay? That is one of the ways we can do. No. We have to think, so that is also a wonderful problem solving that we have to think as educators, right? That we have to deal always with mass customization. So we can't. We have to look at all schools. And that's one of the reasons why when people say, oh, in Finland they're doing this, in Singapore they're doing this, we can't implement it in India, because with all due respect, the entire population of Karol Bagh is more than the population of Finland. And we can't deal with that. So it's mass customization, and that is therefore, as educators and as policymakers, it has become a design thinking problem for us. How do we come up with something that works for everyone, right? It's not the child's problem, it is our problem, right? So. Yes, ma'am.
Is to leave it in silence. Let the child just be there in silence. We need not do anything, but out of that silence, he connects to his inner core and the best of creative solutions or whatever else we want. The entire purpose of your talk will unleash itself and unfold very, very naturally.
Thank you. That is actually the best way to put it. Which is why I said all you need to do is just create the boundary. Right? Because why do we need to create boundaries? Because we are dealing with large numbers and we don't want something untoward to happen. It's more about protecting the child rather than harming him. But once you set that, just as Usha Reddy said, it will manifest. Right? We have imagined it. We have created an aspiration for it. It means that it will manifest. Right? Thank you for summarizing it so beautifully.
All my life. It just spoke about controlled chain reaction. Yeah. So what you spoke about boundaries, if we do not have that control, it will be a creation of an atom bomb.
Exactly. Right? Some of the most important things is to be able to hold it together. That's it. Yes, ma'am.
I'd imagined, and I'm doing it for the last 20 touch, and this is all what my school is about. I founded a small school, and there we have no boundaries. It's a flexible timetable, no examinations. We are balancing what the government says and the child. And beautiful results I've seen. We have an average school grade of A. So thank you for bringing this out to all the other education.
And I want everybody's average. I want everybody's average grade to be C. Okay. No, I know. Many congratulations to you on your score.
So I'm wondering who has aesthetic citizenship in this country? Whose aesthetic is the aesthetic we should allow in the classroom? And what happens when the teacher's aesthetic clashes with the student's aesthetic?
So one is that it's my first overall answer is that's a separate discussion. But having said that, no, so the fact that we put ourselves in the position of qualifying itself makes it very problematic, right? So, no, it is the child's aesthetic that you have to discover and then empower, right? Not yours or mine.
A's aesthetic clashes with child B's aesthetic.
That's fine.
Depending, I mean, it's not usually fine because our schools and classrooms are not.
So that's exactly correct, which is why we're exactly saying that we need to change that, right? So imagination should be given voice, right? Then we are straight away setting a conflicting problem by saying that there has to be one objective aesthetic on which we have to aspire. Can I just have some silence? And so sorry. No, which is why I said that's a different discussion. So when we boil it down to, and which is why artistic creativity and art integration are very different concepts to teaching arts inside the classroom, right? So, and my talk was not really about teaching arts inside the classroom. So, and many of the arts, respectfully, and I'm saying this as a classical musician, are not meant for the classroom for this precise reason, right? That, however, since you're saying Odissi, right? So supposing there is a specific a tribanga has to be a tribanga. There's a specific form, linearity, and a particular design to tribanga. I can't do tribanga and stand in a different way, right? So there are certain cognates of artistic practice which are standardizable regardless of who we are teaching it to, how we are teaching it to. Which is why I said this is a different discussion, right? So, and it's not really germane to what I'm talking about.
Have diverse bodies. What happens if there is a
no, absolutely, which is
student in the classroom and the tribanga looks very different on that body?
no. So, but you are talking about the end result being the art form. We are talking about the end result being a way of thinking about things, right? So, yeah. Absolutely. No, which is why I said that many people have interpreted teaching classical music in the classroom as a very simple solve for art integration. It is not, right? Because you and I both know that a large volume of that is not applicable to the classroom for the precise, so every child cannot sing equally well. Every child's vocal development is going to be different. Every child's auditory development is different. Every child's background at home is different. You know, there's so much interfering, and then I'm expecting everybody to sing in one uniform way. Then I have to specifically construct songs for the classroom which are standardizable. There is no point putting a song into the classroom which requires too much of individual, customized way of approaching certain things. We'll talk offline, right? I think it's a more important discussion. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank Akila Krishnamurthy, Director of Communications at Kriya University.
Thank you, Anand.
Thank you.